because we don't have a quorum. We
Ms.
cannot.
Rodriguez, could there still be a roll call to determine if there's no quorum as well, just procedurally?
Yes. Susan, can you call the roll?
Liz De La Cruz. Okay. Wayne Flesh, no. Deborah is no longer on the commission, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Lisa Hotley is absent. Lisa Noel. Absent. Carol Rodriguez.
Here.
Dan Rosenthal.
Here.
Lillian Eunice. Okay, you do not have a quorum.
Okay. Well,
And so,
we
Ms.
will.
Rodriguez, you can continue and speak about the things. You just obviously cannot take anything that would require a vote, but you can continue to discuss any matters.
Thanks, Mac. In regards to the meeting, to the minutes, we're going to vote on the minutes, but I did notice a couple of corrections that need to be made to the minutes. Lillian was at our last meeting and she was listed as absent.
I thought I resent them and I might not have, but that is correct. I have corrected that.
Great. And then under the property tax relief for older adults, in the third line, it says there were 225 bills filed. I think that should be 25.
I think so, yeah.
It says on tax reform, and it should be tax reform.
You know, I think we could use more Tic Tacs in those little containers. I think we need some Tic Tac reform.
Maybe so. Some days that's what I feel like. All right, those are corrected.
And then under the universal design proposal, on the very last line, it says commissioners will draft a proposal. I think it's commissioners will draft a response to their proposal.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Commission will. Right.
Thanks, Susan.
No, that's no problem. Let me just figure out the wording on that, because what I was putting is that the wrong commission, the Commission on Disabilities, would draft a proposal and submit to the County Council Committee on Disabilities, but I'll do it.
Okay, well, maybe that's what the intent was.
Well, that was the intent, but we can change it to say what you said, because it was also discussed. What you said was also discussed.
We drafted, and it really was just an email response because we, felt it was prudent to inform their chair of our position, which Dan took care of.
Okay.
So for those of us here, I do want to introduce our student, and it is Demetra, and I'm going to have Demetra say her full name, because if I say her last name, I will make a mess of it. Demetra is a international student from Greece and is here and plays volleyball at you tall people out there for St. Louis University, and is working with Dr. Marla Bergwager on an initiative. And Marla asked me, she needed some time to do advocacy work, and I said, absolutely, we would love to have her be a part of our commission. So Dimitri, you want to just share a little bit about yourself and what you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dimitra Giarli. I know the last name is kind of hard to pronounce. So I'm in the MSW program. This is my second semester. I play volleyball for SLU. I have one more year left with volleyball and the program as well. I'll be working with Carol and Susan on some advocacy stuff, and soon enough, I think I'll be facilitator for the Circle of Friends project as well. So we're just trying to get that started as well. And I think we're gonna also write a grant as well, right? Yeah, we'll do that as well. Maybe in the next few weeks or month, right?
Yep, has to be submitted March 15th.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I'm also just involved with some CSD groups, cognitive stimulated therapy groups with Dr. Bergweger, and yeah, that's really it.
Well, we're thrilled you're here. So
Thank you.
one of the real pluses is Dimitri is going to take our minutes. So we're excited about that because that's, giving us, including Susan, kind of lifting some of that responsibility, and we really appreciate it. So she'll be doing that with Susan. So I'm just going to launch right in. We might be able to have an abbreviated meeting since we're not voting on anything today. GrandPad program. I will give you an update to the degree that I'm aware. Dr. Page called me 2 weeks ago to kind of discuss where are we with the GrandPad funding, because the governmental funding, which was both initially funded under CARES and then under ARPA to pay for the GrandPads, that was federal funding that came during COVID. It's no longer available. So what are the alternatives? I did talk to Dr. Page about the initiative that Aging Ahead is launching, which is having a virtual senior center where people can get a meal, have a GrandPad, and participate in activities through the GrandPad. And in that process, the GrandPad can be underwritten by Aging Ahead through the Older Americans Act. And this approach has been approved by the state. I think other area agencies on aging across the state are looking at this as, wow, is that something that we could replicate? But first we need to do it here. And I believe at our last meeting, it was discussed that there's been kind of difficulty with people responding that, yes, I want to sign up for the meal program so I can hold on to my GrandPad. I don't think they realize the importance of the GrandPad may go away if they don't choose to be a part of this program or we don't find filler funding. I did have a conversation with both Lisa, Kristen, and I got together and chatted about this a couple of weeks ago. Kristen is also connecting with the what's the group called that is bringing broadband to the state, and there's quite a bit of funding under broadband expansion in the state. So she is looking at that as also a source of funding. This is $1 million that's we will need on an annual basis to continue the program. We did talk about can individuals pay for their GrandPad through this program. The library, Kristen felt, could not charge. That's outside the purview of what they do, and I think what they want to do, and certainly not something we want to initiate, but we are looking at options, and I know Liz has also reached out to Dr. Page in regards to some of our hospital systems engaging in funding this as well. So open for questions and other ideas. Liz, anything you want to share as well?
No, I mean, I haven't really, had much of a response back from Dr. Page on the medical, so that doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. It seemed logical to me that this is an essential service for many of these older adults, and so it's hard to see why they wouldn't support it so far.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Carol, could it just be a combination of funding sources instead of one funding source? Like,
Oh, sure.
okay, because I was thinking, the library gets, a pretty large tax, base to support it. So I know Kristen's budget's probably, it's hard to find where you can grab it from, but maybe if it was small amounts from different, between Aging Ahead, library, some grants, the county, it might be easier to achieve that goal.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we're looking at, because we're recognizing that the Aging Ahead approach certainly is not gonna, everybody isn't gonna sign up for the Aging Ahead. And, for them to get reimbursed through Older Americans Act funds, people have to actively engage in this program. So I think it can work for a number of people. I think it's hard to understand unless somebody sits down with you and really explains how it's going to work. And that's a time-consuming process. I don't think people are getting it from just getting an email and going, no, I don't want to do that. So more to follow. But yes, we're kind of looking at what other stones can we turn over and find the funding. Kristen also feels that if they do 1,500 grant pads a year, that should be adequate. That's kind of what they're finding to be the sweet spot. We increased it considerably during COVID, but they've had a number of people turn their grant pads back in, but more, they've had, people die and families bring the grant pads back, or people go into long-term care and no longer really can use the grant pads. So for a variety of reasons, and when you think about the fact that the target population we were focusing on were frail elders, and many homebound elders on home delivered meal programs. So I think it's only understandable that, some people are not going to be doing this long term due to various healthcare reasons. So that's kind of what she is feeling would be appropriate. And so that's what we're going for. And I think realistically, in terms of what the county can afford to do long term, it's probably a good place to land. And then we can see, is there a long waiting list? And then look at that. So other questions on grant pads? So Liz, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us an update on Financial Protection Coalition.
Okay, so
And Liz, you're real soft.
am I real soft?
Yeah, for my old ears.
Let's see if I can raise my volume here. There. I just talk louder. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're still we're going to be meeting next week with the advisory team, but I am unfortunately my co-chair for advocacy for financial protection has had to step a step aside. So, and I really was going to be relying on her for a lot of the contacts that she has down in Jeff City. So we'll see, but we're still hoping to have a training educational day on April 12th. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull that off, but I'm going to certainly try to do that. And we've got, I participated yesterday on a Catch a Fire thing on social media to try to see how to do the social media presence. So there's a big learning curve here for me, but the group is getting together, and hopefully we will be able to get the word out better on financial protection. Oh, the one big piece of news was that Ann Wagner, in the paper, she was a sponsor of a bill at the federal level that was addressing securities. I sent an email to Zach Gates, who is her financial services person, to kind of explain that we have this coalition here in the St. Louis region and to see how we could help one another with advancing that. That's about it. Have not heard.
Great. Any questions for Liz? Thank you, Liz, and keep us posted on what's going on at the federal level. I have not read the bill in depth, but it looks like it's very similar to the bill that we passed in Missouri about 10 years ago, which addresses broker-dealers and protecting individual securities. So that could be a real step forward on a federal level. On circuit breaker reform, the bill was heard in committee on the 17th of January. There were a number of organizations that testified in support. I don't think anyone spoke in opposition to the circuit breaker reform bill. It has pretty much just sat since then. The next step is for the committee to vote it out. So hopefully it can get slated to go to the floor. It was really a positive step that it was heard this early. I mean, hearing in mid-January is a huge plus to moving a bill forward, but I know this committee is dealing with a slew of tax reform bills, so making this a priority is important. We have written to the one senator who is from St. Louis County, and I wrote him expressing that the Older Adults Commission is supporting this piece of legislation. I also wrote to the bill sponsor and to the chair of the tax policy committee expressing that we support this and urge them to move this forward. So I will probably follow up next week. They were meeting on Monday afternoon, so I'll see if they meet on Monday, and if they go into executive session, it would be great if they would move this out. There's a similar bill in the House, but I don't think it's even gotten a committee hearing yet. So that's somewhat where we are. Any questions on that? Great. So Susan, you have any updates?
Well,
from
not
CORE?
not too much, but to follow up on the circuit breaker legislation just a little bit, we're getting calls from people who are getting those lovely notices that their property has been inspected because their value is going to increase by 15% or more again this year. So it's that's got people in a little bit of an easy state, I think. And while, their property taxes are probably not going to go up exactly 15%, they're going to go up probably several $100s at least. And that can be a huge financial hit to people. It's some of them are, it's the people that are not the real low income now that are actually I think, feeling the effects of some of the current economic situation more than the very, very low income people. So our tax program has started and we've made almost 300 tax appointments so far. And that's a really good thing. So the response has been and that's just in our north area. Our south area has been struggling a little bit, but they have an incredible demand. But I don't have exact number of tax appointments that they've scheduled so far. So, and we're otherwise, we're still just trying to adjust from the loss of positions that were vacant and things like that. So we're trying to figure it out. We're still trying to figure out how to move the legal program forward, which sounds really strange with, the cuts in staff that we've had. But I just feel it's an important enough program that we need to prioritize that over maybe some of the other things we're doing. So we have a couple of possibilities of how that might work. And Dr. Page was actually helpful in offering a way to possibly get some funding for the position. So
Good.
I think I think it'll come back. It's just not nearly as quickly as I hoped that it would. So.
Susan, there
So
was-
Susan, if you have a client that you feel is a case example, regarding that, that would fit kind of circuit breaker and
Yep.
fit with the circuit breaker bill, an example of someone whose taxes, are going up and they're feeling the pinch. We are looking for case examples. We do not want them to share their names. We want to redact that.
Okay.
But
we should be able to get some.
That would be great because Missouri Budget Project is really looking for those examples.
Do you want
member of
renters?
the yeah,
Okay.
it'll fit renters too.
Okay.
Susan, one question that I saw in the evening news is they said that one tax preparation that was available was Cash App. Have you
Was
heard
what?
of Cash App? It's an online, it's a financial services group and that has this year for the first time launched a free tax preparation.
Well, so some of them and I don't know the name of them, but I know in the last couple of years, there's been some help you can get filing your taxes, but it's like you talk on the phone to someone. And I don't exactly understand how they work.
I'll have to look into that because from what I understand, it's primarily geared to young, but if it works, have very simple taxes and are just filing their taxes and are tech savvy, but it could also work for older adults. So I'll check into it.
Yeah, I'm just, it's not something that I'm like real familiar with. The good news is there are a number of organizations that provide free income tax assistance to everyone. We're one of the few that just limits it to people 60 and older. But people can get help, and we have a list that we refer people to if they live in the city or if they're under 60, there's resources we can refer them to. I'm not sure. I know that AARP has said that they're down in the number of tax preparers that they have this year. So their number of people that they can serve will probably be decreased. But we can definitely this year pick up their overflow because we actually have more tax preparers this year than we've had in the last couple of years. So that's encouraging that we'll, be able to serve more people because prior to this year, I don't know what will happen this year, but there has always been a greater demand than anyone had appointments for. So by the end of the tax season, by the first part of April, really nobody has tax appointments left anymore. So hopefully we won't be in that position this year. We'll be able to serve people that even are kind of slow in getting it done. So.
Well, thank you, Susan. And I'm glad, 300 appointments is fairly significant.
It actually is, yeah, that's a pretty significant number by this stage of February, because we didn't start taking appointments till January 25th. So
Yeah.
it's the
Well, if
demand
you
is
have
there.
any case examples, from South County, all the better, because the member of the Senate committee, I believe it's Senator Beck, is from the South County area.
Okay.
And
We'll
he,
get some.
I'm pretty sure, is supportive of this legislation, but every senator loves a story that he or she can share. So that's always a good thing, and they love to hear from their constituents. So constituents could call him directly if they wanted to. That's also something that would be good. But like I say, I think he's supportive. But it is good to have those stories.
Right. I will get them.
Great. So Universal Design, Dan, do you just want to give a little update on
I
follow
haven't,
up?
after you and I spoke with Linda Baker and we, gave her our opinions and offered our help in negotiating with the Home Builders Association, I have heard nothing back from Linda. So I don't know where it stands. And because we didn't give 100% support of their strategy, I don't know if they want our support or help. So I have.
Yeah. Well, as you and I discussed with Linda at the time, getting everything you want just rarely happens through public policy, and this, might be a nice compromise with the Home Builders Association, because they're a pretty strong lobbying group. And to your point and what we discussed last time, I thought they came back with a well thought out reply offering to really serve and mandate education on universal design, which is a pretty big first step.
It was,
So,
I thought it would be a very positive move. Just to do that, I think what we might have to do is see if the council actually supports this. Linda's group seemed to believe that they had enough support at the county council to get this measure passed. I'm a little skeptical. We have to see what the lobbying groups do.
Well, Sue is not able to be here today because she had a listing or something. I'm not sure. But in her update that she sent me, she said they will be meeting with Lisa Clancy in a week or so regarding universal design updating. That was all there was. So
yeah, and Lisa is a big supporter of this, but they have to get a majority. I don't know where that stands.
I think it's also the devil is in the details. So I think when they read the scope of what's being asked, there may be a little bit of pause. We'll see.
But again, do you want me to call Linda back and just say, do you need, we were again offering our assistance? Happy to.
I think if you want to give her a call or an email and just say, we met, just following up to, see, let you know our willingness to be at the table in these discussions.
Okay. I'll do that.
Thank you, Dan, because you have a wealth of expertise that they could really use. So, being an architect that focuses in this area would just be a real gift to.
I didn't get the sense that they wanted to hear an opposing view.
Yeah, well,
We'll see.
that may be the case. So we'll follow up. And speaking of Lisa Clancy, following our last meeting, I sent out, at our last meeting, Lisa Knoll talked about how Aging Ahead has their survey and they're gathering community input that will help drive decision-making in regards to their programs. And they seek this community input, both in terms of they used to do lots of focus groups and community events, and now they're also doing this survey. So I sent it to all the members of the county council, and I did get a note back from Lisa Clancy saying, thanks so much. I pushed this out on my Twitter feed or whatever, and I also put it in my newsletter. And in my note to members of the county council, I specifically gave them like 2 sentences that they could just pop into a newsletter to make it pretty easy for them. So she appreciated just being kept in the link, and felt that seeking that public input was important and something that she could push out. I didn't hear back from anybody else, but it went out. So it's something that wasn't initially on the agenda because it's something that it's really moved forward really quickly in the last less than a week. And it is transportation. I think, Susan has discussed in the past that this is an area of concern, and that St. Louis County is, and her program, they were looking at new models for delivery of transportation for older adults in the county, that the volunteer program they
Ms.
have.
Rodriguez, can I interrupt for a second? I just want to
Yes.
clarify something. And so when you said this wasn't on the agenda, so this was not on the posted agenda, right? Because the one that is public, I'm not seeing it on there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Unfortunately, I understand that it is an urgent need, but without something more, we cannot discuss something that was not published on our agenda.
Oh,
And so,
okay.
like, if there was like something that like truly you found something today and like there's a reason that like it wasn't posted, that is different. But unfortunately, from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like it is meeting the urgency that we would not have to have it noticed up on the agenda to be in compliance with sunshine.
It could fall out under core because it is a county
Yeah.
older residents program. Mac,
Okay.
Do you want me to talk about it? Is that?
Susan, can you talk about a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mac, for clarifying on that. I appreciate it. I think it can fall out under number 4 under core.
Oh, yeah, it can. And actually, I probably should have included it in my report. But so Carol found that AARP is posted the opening for their challenge grants. And so I think if looking at the criteria for the different grants that they offer, I think we can possibly apply for some funding. It wouldn't be a large amount, but it would be some funding to explore the model that the city of St. Louis has used with the, with the Uber, and providing either, like a voucher for $10 off an Uber ride or something like that, or figuring out some way to help people maybe just even become more comfortable with using Uber. And so one of my staff has done some pretty serious research on Uber Health and Lyft Concierge. And both of those are targeted to, I would say, more older people, although I think anyone can use them, and anyone can use them. They don't seem to be very well publicized, but they can use them. And especially with Lyft, they actually train a pool of drivers that drive for Lyft Concierge. And so that's kind of a positive, I think. And I did speak with Annalisa Stover, the director of St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, and she was pretty, forthcoming with information on how that program, went for them. And they had pluses and they had minuses in terms of, what it provided for people. But I think it might be worth an effort in St. Louis County to do the same thing. So with the help of Demetra, we're going to attempt to apply for some funding from them. I really don't know if it'll be funded, but I think we need to try and just see. And it would be limited. It needs to all be completed, I think, by, is it November, Carol?
Yes.
It has to be completed by November, and I think the decisions are made like in March. So it'd be sort of through the summer months that if we got the funding, we could help people, and we could offset some of the cost for people to use one of these services. The reason CORE's been looking at it prior to now is it's a less staff intensive model than the transportation by volunteers is. It's not quite as, I guess, good of customer service as the volunteer is, but we have to try to leverage, the 3 staff people that we have that can provide transportation and get it to as many people as we can, because we serve all of St. Louis County, so we need to look at some things like that. So I think this is a possibility. It's not a long-term solution, but if it could even help people become more comfortable using the service, that would be a step forward for folks. So
I think, Susan, also, we talked about, when Susan and I talked a little bit about this, there's difficulty recruiting volunteers in the North County area to do the transportation. And, this might be what we were discussing, and correct me, Susan, if we're going in the wrong direction, but what we were discussing is really using this as a model and looking at, a smaller geographic footprint to do this. And then if it is successful, Susan does have a budget for transportation and possibly shifting some of that money into, if this proves to be successful, using some of that money for this model. Is that correct, Susan?
yes,
Because
that's
my
absolutely
real
correct.
concern is the sustainability. I don't want to go through, oh yes, we're doing this and people fall in love with it, and then we go, it's gone. So we want to
Right.
make sure we're looking at that sustainability piece.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at, and targeting, some of the folks that we're just not able to serve right now because we don't have volunteers in those areas. So
Jamie, you had a question?
No, I was just gonna make a comment. So
Okay.
the senior fund does fund that LIFT program for the city of St. Louis. And one of the things that we've learned from the pilot is that you're gonna need a volunteer or some staff person to really just focus in on making those appointments for people because of the technology issue.
Mhm.
That's how it's different from the regular LIFT program. And so making sure that you add that into your budget, whether you use your current staff or however you see it. But that was a huge issue, was the amount of time it took staff to be able to, I mean, it's a good program, don't get me wrong. It's a really good program. But if you can shift those volunteers into making sure you have 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, someone who can coordinate it, depending on how big of a, because it just took off in the city. So just wanted to
Yeah.
add that.
no, we are looking at that. Moving to a
Yeah.
model like this is kind of attractive to me because we don't have the staff hours that we need to continue. Even if we get more volunteers, we don't have the staff hours that we need to continue the volunteer transportation because it is very labor intensive. It's a minimum of 3 phone calls for every transportation that's arranged. And that's on a really good day. You know, and you have to wait for people to call you back, and, you know, you have to call more than one volunteer and things like that. So it takes a lot of staff time. Whereas with this, it seems to be a more efficient way to schedule the transportation. You know, you contact the service, tell them what they need, where they need to go, and then you move forward. And then I understand that there could be a follow-up call, like right before, and then you do that. So, but I think, and I mean, we don't know because we haven't done it before, but I think it seems like it would take less staff hours. And unfortunately, right now, that's where we are. Well, there's more people that need the transportation. Right now, we've got to figure out what we can do with the staff hours that we have. And it's significantly less than we had a couple years ago. So
I would
we'll see what
definitely talk,
happens.
I would definitely talk with Annalisa, but because
Mhm.
the time that you used to take with finding a driver and getting back to the person, now the time is shifted towards talking with the client, where they need to go, getting them signed up and letting them know that I mean, you're working because they're not going to be signing up themselves. So just
Right.
making sure you have an understanding of
Yeah,
the.
well, because right now we sign them up. Well, right now we actually do a little mini assessment with them and with the hope of connecting to other services, but that's going by the wayside. And so they do that. They get them signed up for the transportation program. They have to get a permit and release card signed for liability issues. And then you know, the person calls them and says, you know, this is where I need to go and at this time, and I'm seeing Dr. Whoever, because we had an incident many years ago where the volunteer let them out because it was raining or something, and they went into a large medical building and the volunteer didn't know what medical office they went to. So that took a little bit of intense time to figure out where that was. So we do find out what doctor they're seeing, you know, and so and then you share that with once you get a volunteer that'll do it, you share all of that. So there's a lot of that kind of thing also. We do understand that there will be a learning curve for the customers and what they're going to do. And hopefully with them feeling comfortable with a coordinator already, if they offer this model, it'll give them a little bit of a sense of security that this person that they already have a relationship with is suggesting this idea. I don't know if it'll work, but we're going to try it. But I do appreciate the input because I know there's going to be things come up that we won't think about ahead of time. So, but I will be in touch with Annalise. We had quite a conversation before, so.
So it's the challenge grants. I sat in yesterday to kind of the little tutorial. And I think there were 1,000 people on the call. I think it's incredibly competitive,
Yeah.
and people can apply for more than one. So you know, there are a lot of people going after challenge grants. The St. Louis Village in the city got a challenge grant several years ago that both Dan and I worked on a little bit, which was rehabbing the community garden up at Lewis Place. And that was funded through a challenge grant. So the big thing about a challenge grant is it's very time limited. They have focused a lot on tangibles. So a lot of people are, I'm going to put in, you know, 10 park benches, or I'm going to do a bus shelter, or, you know, I'm going to, you know, paint crosswalks in the street. So a lot of real tangibles, but you can do something like test a new innovative approach and see if that works. So that's kind of the approach that we're going for. So Demetra is going to be working on that, and, you know, we'll submit and see how it goes.
Right.
So under new business, I think all of you are aware that Deborah has stepped away from the commission. She has some health issues she wants to spend more time focusing on. And she's also, very involved with her book and her art and her speaking, and really felt as if she needed to rebalance with the new year everything that was on her plate. So that is a real void for us. Deborah was in the position of representing a senior related agency. So that's a position that is not tied to a county council district, which is allowing for some thought on, who might fill that slot. I did talk to Dr. Page about this as well. And he asked that for that position, as well as the other positions that are open, he would like some recommendations. And he absolutely stressed his desire for us to think about diversity as we look at new members on the commission. So we know we have someone with an expressed interest in District 6, Tracus's district, but we don't know for sure if that person's going to apply. So we're crossing our fingers. That still leaves someone in Webb's district. And then Liz spoke to Dunaway's office and they said they might have someone. Is that correct, Liz?
Yeah, they have someone who thought was interested, but they wanted to attend a meeting, and so I didn't hear any follow up on that. So I'll email them again and find out what's going, because I think I can tell them to look at the recordings and they'll get an idea of what we're covering. That will see where.
Sounds good. So what I would ask, I've come up with kind of a short list of some people that are possible ask. If you have anyone in mind, if you want to shoot me a name, I would appreciate it. Looking at categories instead of individuals, we do a lot in the financial protection realm. And so, I thought, do we want to think about an elder law attorney? Might be a nice addition. I know Bridget Fernandez, who is an elder law attorney, and she's also an MSW. So, what can you say? She's wonderful. Anyway, so I thought about emailing her. I think a lot of people are very busy. She has a very busy practice, so that may not work. I also thought about someone from the Clergy Coalition, and don't know if anyone has any specific context there. I did look at their leadership. I do know someone on their leadership board, but he lives in the city. So if anyone has a contact there, that would be good as well. Any other arenas that you feel, let's go after blah, blah, blah? We don't want to go after blah, 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 but you know what I'm saying.
At one point when we had someone who was in the at-home care, which might be an area.
Yeah, I have that on my list too, Liz. I thought that was good.
Also, minority representation is what we, by
Yeah.
Zulema and Deborah, we really to get representation.
Yeah. Well, feel free to send me an email if you have some thoughts. Dan, did you have a thought?
Well, no, we're meeting with Paulette Sankofa this afternoon about peace, weaving, wholeness, and I'm wondering if she has any recommendations. Not in this, I mean, she's in the city, but I was going to ask her if she might know of anybody that might be appropriate for us.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay, well, keep us all in mind. And yeah, I think that's kind of covers it. I would, we have our, we will be need to do our end of year report to Dr. Page and the committee of the whole. We usually do that in May, which is Older Americans Month. And one of our goals last year was to fill the commission, and it sure would be nice to have some of these slots at least be moving forward prior to the date that we meet with committee of the whole. So I'll probably be reaching out to Shalonda Webb. I want to get that on her calendar quite early so that we have a date to present. We presented last year, and I think it was kind of, I mean, we were there for almost an hour. And I thought it was good to get in front of the full commission and have that opportunity. Are people okay with that approach this year, doing that again?
Carol, one thing I know Jamie's on here, and I was wondering if she has anything about on what's going on in the city.
Yes, well, that's next on the agenda thank you, Liz. So Jamie, you want to give us senior fund?
Oh, I just wanted to remind everybody that, so the senior fund, one of the first things that we did is we applied, when we became a fund, we applied actually for an advocacy grant from Missouri Foundation for Health before the pandemic, and we were invited after 2 years in successful program of holding the Aging and Disability legislative calls. We were invited back, and the grant was extended starting this last month for the next 2 years. So I just wanted to remind everybody that if you're interested in hearing and learning about what bills are being introduced at the state that could impact older adults and people with disabilities, we'd love for you to join, and I'll put the information into the chat. I guess the other thing that's going on in the city right now is we are just in the process of, putting information out about, we have senior center grants going out, and we have funded Ms. Sankofa in the work that she's done in the city, working with the village. We have a grant with the village right now to do some outreach into some lower income zip codes in the area. And we also are going to be continuing our oral health grants with AT Stills for the next 3 years, in addition to trying to implement again the LIFT program with the Area Agency on Aging. However, because of their staffing shortages, it's been very difficult for them to, just like CORE, I think they have 9 people out, which is significant, and they're having a hard time finding people for the positions. So, so those are the big things on the list. We did hire a new executive director for the Missouri Council on Aging. I neglected to say that. Nicole Bergerman, who used to be with Missouri Foundation for Health as their advocacy program manager, is now our new executive director. And she just started last week. So we'll be introducing her tomorrow as well. And I guess that's pretty much, I mean, we're just kind of rolling along. We do still have this grant from Missouri Foundation for Health to help counties that want to have a senior levy fund. do a kind of a readiness assessment. So if your commission is interested in having someone come in and talk to you about, you know, how ready is your county and looking at that, we're more than happy to help with that. We now have a toolkit for counties that want to pass a senior levy fund. I know that this is something that Dr. Page has said that until the county can figure out how to deal with the huge deficit that the county has, they're not interested in raising taxes for anything else. But I will say that the needs of the residents of St. Louis County don't go away. So it might be something that you're just interested in taking a look at. And I think that's pretty much it from the city.
Thanks,
Jamie, is
Jamie.
that-
And the phone calls that are every other Friday that Jamie referred to are very informative. So I was not able to be on the last one, but when I have been on the calls, I mean, they're generally, between 50 and 75 people on the calls from across the state, and several individuals, more than several individuals, quite a few individuals who spend their time during the legislative session in Jeff City at the Capitol, monitoring bills, both related to older adult issues and also issues related for people with various disabilities. So it's usually very fast paced and informative. So
and
I know Liz has been on the call quite a few times.
Is that tomorrow? Is that call tomorrow?
Yes, and I put the link, the Zoom link in the chat. So you have it, if you go to your chat or message, I guess, yeah, it's still called chat. Sometimes the different systems have different names. But if you go to the chat, you'll see that. And if you don't find it, just email me, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But there are bills that are being introduced that also are impacting property taxes and so forth, and that could also impact the senior levy funds as well. So it's like on one end you gain, on another end you lose. So trying to get it all figured out.
Okay, so any commissioners have something that they would like to share?
Wait, Commission on Disabilities.
Oh, do you want to? Oh, you have a
There's
report.
more. Yeah, well,
Okay.
she said they're having a meeting with Lisa Clancy in a week or so regarding the universal design updating. They have a new appointment to taxi committee. There was no explanation of that, but that's what she sent. I'm assuming that what that means is that that there is a Commission on Disabilities person that is going to be the liaison with the taxi commission, but I could not verify that from the website this morning. So, and then they do have a new commissioner and his name is Brandon Morris. So that's her update.
Great, thank you. So share out from commissioners. Does someone have something they would like to share?
I'm continuing to meet with St. Andrews. And Jamie and I met with Bill Holman, which was great. And I'm meeting with Catherine Robinson next week to talk about. I don't know if that might. I'll ask them about whether there's somebody that's associated with that organization that might be interested in being on the.
Yeah, and Liz, you may want to ask, I mean, we are looking at web, and if it would be helpful, Dan put together this way cool calendar about, I don't know, a year or so ago. And some of the names have changed, but the districts have stayed the same. I can send that out to people because we still, I think if we have someone in Councilwoman Webb's district, as well as in Dunaway's district. I mean, if you know a strong candidate, and again, we're really looking at, I mean, we want strong, active people who are going to be able to show up for our meetings and participate because, you know, we're a pretty participatory board, which is a good thing. So if you have some people, would it be helpful to send out that map again? I can do that. Okay. Any other share out? I will just share one thing. Dan has been nominated for this way cool architectural award for a building a pool house that he designed for a house on Lindell, I believe it was. Anyway, it's in St. Louis Magazine and it's way cool. And I think, you know, and it looked very universally designed. Very.
Well, it was.
So
I mean,
it'll be in keeping with what
I
we're
wasn't
talking
gonna,
about.
I'm on a finalist in 4 categories, but they won't announce the award until April, and I'll be out of the country in April, so who knows?
Oh, no.
But no, if I win, I'd love to share what we did with that house because it was designed for an older couple that wants to age in place, and their thought is that the main house could go to one of their children, and that they would move into the pool house. It was designed as a home, and it's accessible, and so yeah, it's neat from that perspective. Thanks for mentioning it.
Oh, well, we're very proud of you and appreciate the time that you give to this commission. It is a gift to us.
Dan, would you have any interest in having NPR interview you and have them talk about what you did? Because I just think that would be a phenomenal story.
Yay.
The owner of the house, I wanted to submit this project for an American, the AIA award, and he didn't want the publicity. So this nomination kind of snuck in under the radar. So I don't think he wants me really talking about it. Thanks, though.
The next one he does. Okay. Anything else? Our next meeting. Let's make sure we get this on everybody's calendar. March 2nd, is that, just want to confirm, looking at my calendar.
Yeah, look again.
Yeah. So March 2nd, and we will get that out. Anything else? We're going to wrap up a little bit early. Thank you all for your time. And next month, I hope we have better participation and better communication with everyone, and everyone gets the notice in advance. And I may actually send out an email just asking people to respond to me that they have gotten the notice so that we can double confirm it. Because for us to be effective, we all need to be present. So that's it, I think. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate your time, and see you in March. Take care.
Yeah.